Korean crime, Prince discovered his dead black wife is alive with his secret. The knife pressed against Elara's throat drew a thin line of blood. Where are the files? The man's breath was hot against her ear, his Korean accent thick with menace. Rain hammered the alley around them, drowning out the sounds of Port Lucian's nightlife just 30 feet away. Elara's fingers clawed at his grip, her vision blurring. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. 5 years of running, 5 years of hiding, and she was going to die in an alley behind a noodle shop because she'd stayed too late at work. Then the black sedan appeared at the alley's entrance, headlights cutting through the rain like searchlights. The door opened. A man stepped out, and even through the downpour, even with the scar running jagged across his left cheek, Elara knew that face. The attacker froze. "No, you're dead." Clearly not. The scarred man's voice was silk over steel, his words carrying the weight of violence barely restrained. "Let her go, and I'll make it quick. Boss said to bring her in alive, but he didn't say anything about you." The attacker's knife pressed deeper. The scarred man smiled. It was not a kind smile. "That's your mistake." What happened next took 3 seconds. The scarred man moved like water, like violence choreographed by someone who'd killed more times than he could count. The attacker's scream cut off abruptly as his body hit the wet pavement. Elara stood frozen, blood trickling down her neck, staring at the man who'd just saved her life. The man who'd been dead for 5 years. The man whose funeral she'd attended in a black dress she'd burned the next day because she couldn't stand to look at it. "Hello, Elara," Cassian said, rain streaming down his face. "We need to talk." She whispered the only words that made sense. "It can't be you." But it was. After 5 years of peace, 5 years of pretending to be someone else, the past had found her, and it had his face. If you want to know how Elara ended up here, how a quiet cafe owner became the target of Korean crime syndicates, and why the husband she buried came back from the dead, then you're in the right place. This is a story about love and betrayal, about violence and redemption, about two people caught between two worlds who can't escape their past no matter how far they run. Let's go back to where it all started. Port Lucian was the kind of city where cultures collided and created something new. The waterfront district smelled like kimchi and jollof rice, Korean BBQ and suya, the sounds of Afro beats mixing with K-pop in the clubs that lined the harbor. It was a city built by immigrants, controlled by those ruthless enough to claim territory. And Elara had chosen it specifically because she could disappear here. She'd been Mira Castellano for 5 years now. Not Elara Lysander, widow of the most dangerous Korean crime boss on the East Coast. Just Mira, owner of the Yaosm Brushstroke, a small cafe where local artists displayed their work and Korean-Nigerian fusion cuisine attracted a steady stream of customers. Her sister Livia burst through the cafe door that morning with the energy of someone who hadn't yet learned that the world could be cruel. At 21, Liv was everything Elara had fought to preserve, untouched by the darkness that had consumed their lives before Port Lucian. "Sis, you will not believe what Professor Kim said about my collection." Livia's dark skin glowed with excitement, her braids swinging as she grabbed Elara's hands. "He wants to feature my work in the student gallery. My Afro-Korean identity series, the one you said was too personal to show anyone." Elara pulled her into a hug, breathing in the coconut oil Livia used in her hair. "I'm so proud of you. You were right to make us leave Lagos. I never would have found myself there." Livia grabbed a pastry from the display case, the honey butter roll that bridged her Nigerian heritage and Korean influences. "This place, this life, it's everything." If only you knew what it cost, Elara thought. But she just smiled and told Livia to eat something substantial before her gallery meeting. The morning rush was typical. Mrs. Park ordered her usual gochujang fried chicken sandwich. Kwame, the regular from down the street, wanted his suya spiced latte. Elara worked the rhythm she'd perfected over 4 years, present but invisible, the way survivors learned to be. Then the flowers arrived. The delivery man wouldn't meet her eyes as he placed the crystal vase on the counter. Inside, a single black orchid, its petals dark as midnight, its presence impossible to misinterpret. "Who sent this?" Elara's voice was steady, but her hands shook. "No sender information, ma'am, just the address." She waited until he left before touching it. Black orchids had been Cassian's signature, the first gift he'd ever given her back when she was a graduate student studying art history, and he was the mysterious benefactor who'd funded her research trip to Seoul, back before she knew what he really was. Elara shoved the vase in the back office and tried to convince herself it meant nothing. Coincidence. Black orchids weren't that rare. Anyone could have sent them. But her hands kept shaking as she made cappuccinos and rang up orders, and she caught herself watching the door like something terrible might walk through at any moment. That afternoon, the terrible thing arrived wearing an expensive suit. He was Korean, mid-30s, with the kind of calculated casual style that screamed money and danger in equal measure. He didn't look at the menu when he approached the counter, just studied Elara with eyes that missed nothing. "Coffee. Black," he said. His accent was soul-polished, his smile practiced. "You're Mira?" "That's right. New to the neighborhood?" "Just moved here. Adrian Vale. I'm in import-export." He extended a hand that had probably held guns as often as business cards. "Heard this was the best cafe in the district." Elara shook his hand briefly. "Welcome to Port Lucian, Mr. Vale." "Please, Adrian." That smile again, designed to disarm. "You have an interesting place here. Afro-Korean fusion, local art, very eclectic. How long have you been open?" 4 years. "Built it yourself?" "Yes." "Impressive. And you did all this alone? No husband, no business partner?" The question was casual, but Elara felt its weight. "Just me and my sister. A woman of many talents." He took his coffee and claimed the corner table with a view of the entire cafe. "I have a feeling I'll be seeing you often." He became a fixture after that. Every day at 3, same table, same order. Always polite, always asking questions that seemed innocent but went too deep. Where was she from originally? Did she have family in Seoul? Had she ever been involved in international business? Elara answered in half-truths and redirections, the way she'd learned to do. But Adrian watched her like he was solving a puzzle, and she knew that look. Had seen it on Cassian's face when he was tracking targets, identifying weaknesses, planning his next move. On the 5th day of Adrian's visits, Elara was closing up when she heard it. A man's laugh, deep and rich and impossible, coming from across the street. She knew that laugh. Had heard it 1,000 times in another life, usually right before Cassian did something dangerous or romantic or both. She rushed to the door, but the street was empty. Just the usual evening crowd, heading to dinner, to clubs, to lives that weren't haunted by dead men's laughter. "You're losing your mind," she told herself. The orchid, Adrian's questions, now phantom sounds. 5 years of looking over your shoulder had finally broken something in her brain. But that night she dreamed of fire. The explosion that had taken Cassian, the flames that had consumed their safe house, the smoke that had filled her lungs as she'd searched for him in the burning building. She woke, gasping, her Nigerian cotton sheets soaked with sweat, and couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. The next morning, Adrian was waiting at her door before opening time. "We're not open yet," Elara said through the glass. "I need to talk to you privately." His expression had changed, the friendly mask slipping to reveal something harder underneath. "It's about who you really are." Elara's blood ran cold, but she unlocked the door. Better to face this inside than on the street where anyone could see. Adrian entered and locked the door behind him, flipping the closed sign. Your name isn't Mira Castellano. It's Elara Lysander. 5 years ago, you were married to Choi Cassian, head of the Lysander Syndicate, one of the most powerful Korean-Nigerian crime networks on the East Coast. Everyone thought you died in the explosion that killed him. But here you are, serving lattes and pretending the past never happened. Elara's mind raced. Deny everything, call the police, run. But she'd learned from Cassian that sometimes the only way forward was through the danger. Who sent you? People who were loyal to your husband. People who've been looking for you because they think you have something that belongs to them. I don't have anything. I left with nothing but my sister and the clothes on my back. The files, Elara. The USB drive you took from Cassian's office the night of the fire. The one with account numbers, client lists, operation details. The one that could destroy what's left of the Lysander network if it fell into the wrong hands. She'd forgotten about those files, grabbed them in the chaos thinking they might be leverage if she needed to disappear. She'd destroyed the drive 2 years ago, melted it down until nothing remained. They're gone. I destroyed them. That's what I hoped you'd say. Adrian's voice changed, softened. Because if you'd kept them, if you'd planned to use them, this conversation would go very differently. You're testing me. I needed to know if you were a threat or a victim. He moved closer, and for the first time, Elara really looked at him. At the way he held himself, familiar despite the unfamiliar face. At his eyes, dark brown but with flecks of gold she'd once memorized. At the hands that had held her 1,000 times in another life. It's you, she whispered. Cassian. He smiled, sad and broken. Hello, wife. The slap came from somewhere deep, 5 years of grief and rage compressed into one violent motion. Adrian, Cassian, whoever he was, didn't flinch. Just touched his reddening cheek and nodded like he'd earned it. You let me think you were dead. Elara's voice shook. I mourned you. I cried myself to sleep every night for a year. I built a memorial in my mind and visited it every single day, and you were alive, watching, playing games with new faces and fake names. I was protecting you by torturing me, by letting me believe I'd lost you. The explosion was meant to kill us both. My enemies wanted you dead to hurt me, to eliminate anyone who knew too much about my operations. The only way to keep you safe was to stay dead, to let everyone believe we'd both burned in that fire. Then why come back now? Why ruin everything? Because they found you anyway. Cassian's control cracked, the crime boss facade shattering to reveal the man underneath. My enemies know you're alive. They've known for months. I've been intercepting their moves, redirecting their attention, but I can't anymore. That orchid? That was me warning you. Every question I asked as Adrian was me trying to understand if you'd moved on, if you'd be safer without me in your life. And your conclusion? That there's no safety anymore. They're coming for you, Elara, and when they get here, they won't care that you destroyed the files. They'll torture you to be sure, use Livia to make you talk and kill you, both when they realize you're telling the truth. The words hit like punches. Elara backed away, her mind spinning. Then I run again. I take Liv and we disappear somewhere even you can't find us. There's nowhere left to run. I've been keeping you safe from the shadows, but I can't anymore. The only way to protect you now is to bring you back into my world, under my protection, where everyone knows that touching you means war. I won't do it. I won't go back to that life, to being the crime boss's wife, to blood and violence and always looking over my shoulder. Even if it's the only way to keep your sister alive. Before Elara could answer, the cafe's back door exploded inward. Three men in black masks burst through, guns drawn, moving with military precision. Cassian grabbed Elara and pulled her behind the counter as bullets shattered the front windows, the art on the walls, the life she'd built. He moved like violence incarnate, every motion efficient and brutal. He disarmed the first attacker with a kick that shattered the man's wrist, used the fallen gun to shoot the second in the shoulder, and engaged the third in hand-to-hand combat that ended with a knife to the attacker's thigh. "Stay down!" Cassian shouted, but Elara wasn't the woman who'd run 5 years ago. She'd survived too much to cower now. She grabbed the chef's knife she kept under the register and came up behind an attacker who'd gotten too close, pressing the blade to his throat. "Drop it," she said in Korean. Her accent Lagos thick, but her meaning crystal clear. The man froze. Cassian stared at her, something like pride and pain mixing in his expression. "There she is. There's the real Elara Lysander." The attacker spoke, his voice muffled behind the mask. "Ronan says you have something that belongs to us. The files from the old network. He wants them back, or he wants you dead, preferably both." "Ronan survived?" Cassian's voice went deadly quiet. "You thought that bomb in Busan finished him? He's been rebuilding, and now he wants what you took." The attacker's eyes found Elara. "Starting with your pretty Nigerian wife." Sirens wailed in the distance. The attackers fled, leaving destruction and a message spray-painted on the café wall in red. 24 hours. The old safe house. Come alone or the sister dies. Elara's legs gave out. Cassian caught her, held her as the implications crashed down. "Livia. They're going after Livia. Not if we get to her first." Cassian was already pulling out his phone, barking orders in rapid Korean. "I have people watching her school, her apartment, everywhere she goes. But we need to move now." They ran to his car, the black sedan that had saved her life in the alley. Cassian drove like he was being chased by demons, weaving through Port Lucian's traffic with reckless precision. "Who's Ronan?" Elara demanded, checking the gun Cassian had given her. Her hands remembered the weight, the safety mechanisms, the way to check if a round was chambered. "Ronan Park, my former second-in-command. He wanted to expand into human trafficking, drugs that target kids, things I wouldn't allow. We fought about it. The night of the explosion, I thought I'd killed him. Turns out we both survived. And now he wants revenge. Revenge and the files. With those account numbers and contact lists, he could rebuild the entire Lysander network under his control, access funds I hid away, blackmail clients into loyalty. He'd become more powerful than I ever was. But I destroyed the files. He doesn't believe that, or he doesn't care. Either way, he'll use this as an excuse to eliminate us both and take everything we had." They reached Livia's art school, a converted warehouse in the cultural district where Korean and Nigerian artists collaborated on pieces that bridged their cultures. Students milled around outside, their laughter and chatter a stark contrast to the violence Elara had just survived. Then she saw it. Livia's backpack, abandoned on the steps, her phone, screen cracked, lying next to it. Signs of a struggle in the disturbed dust. "No." The word came out broken. Elara fell to her knees, grabbing Livia's phone with shaking hands. "No, no, no!" Cassian's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and his face went white. Silently, he showed her the image. Livia bound to a chair in some dark warehouse. Terror in her dark eyes, a gag in her mouth. The message below read, "On 24 hours, old safe house, you know the rules." Elara couldn't breathe. The world tilted and spun, and she couldn't make it stop. Her baby sister, the girl she'd raised after their parents died, the innocent life she'd fought so hard to protect, was in the hands of a monster. "We get her back." Cassian's hands framed her face, forcing her to focus. "Whatever it takes, we get her back. He'll kill us all." Only if we let him. Cassian pulled her to her feet. But we don't go unprepared. I have weapons, people, resources. Ronan thinks he's won because he has Livia, but he's forgotten something important. What? He's forgotten what we're capable of when someone threatens our family. Cassian's smile was all teeth and violence. Time to remind him. They drove to a nondescript building in the industrial district, one of Cassian's safe houses that even Ronan didn't know about. Inside, it looked like an armory had collided with a surveillance center. Screens showed feeds from across Port Lucian, weapons lined the walls, and 3 of Cassian's people worked computers with focused intensity. A Korean woman in her 40s looked up when they entered. Boss, we've been tracking Ronan's movements since the café attack. He's using the old waterfront property, the one where the original explosion happened. How many men? Cassian was already strapping on body armor, checking weapons with practiced efficiency. At least 15. Maybe more. He's expecting you to come alone, but he'll have every angle covered. Then we don't come alone. Cassian handed Elara a bulletproof vest. And we don't come unprepared. For the next 20 hours, they planned. Studied building layouts, identified entry points, coordinated with Cassian's remaining loyal operatives. Elara moved through it all in a daze of grief and determination, her fear for Livia sharpening into something harder, colder. She remembered being this person once. Before the café, before the peace, she'd been Elara Lysander, wife of the most dangerous man in Port Lucian's underworld. She'd learned to shoot, to fight, to read people's intentions in the twitch of an eye. She'd thought she'd left that woman behind. But as midnight approached and they prepared to move, Elara realized that woman had never really left. She'd just been sleeping, waiting for the moment when everything she loved was threatened. If we do this, Cassian said as they drove toward the waterfront, if we go in there together, there's no going back. You'll be Elara Lysander again. The café, the quiet life, the peace you built, it's all over. It was over the moment you came back. Elara checked her gun, her hands steady now, her mind clear. Now let's go get my sister. The old safe house loomed against the night sky, partially rebuilt since the fire but still scarred, still marked by the violence that had consumed it 5 years ago. Cassian's operatives moved through the shadows, taking positions, waiting for the signal. Elara and Cassian approached the main entrance together, their footsteps echoing in the empty street. The door stood open, light spilling out like an invitation to hell. Inside, Ronan waited. He was Korean, late 40s, with burn scars covering half his face and a smile that promised pain. Livia sat bound to a chair behind him, her eyes wide with terror but fierce with the same stubborn strength that ran in their family. Cassian, Elara. Ronan's voice was smoke and gravel. So good of you to accept my invitation. I was worried you wouldn't show up, but I should have known better. You always were soft when it came to family. Let her go, Ronan. This is between us. Is it? Ronan circled Livia's chair like a predator. Because I think this is about so much more. This is about you thinking you could walk away, could disappear with your precious files and leave the rest of us to clean up your mess. This is about you being too weak to do what needed to be done to keep the Lysander network strong. You mean selling children into trafficking? Pushing drugs in schools? That's not strength, Ronan. That's being a monster. In our world, there's no difference. Ronan pulled out a knife, pressed it to Livia's throat. Now where are the files? Gone. Destroyed 2 years ago. Liar. It's the truth. I melted the drive down. There's nothing left. Ronan's smile widened. Then I guess I don't need you alive after all. Everything happened at once. Ronan's knife moved. Cassian's gun came. Up. Elara was already moving her own weapon tracking targets, her body remembering training she thought she'd forgotten. Gunfire erupted. Cassian's operatives burst through windows and doors, engaging Ronan's men in a firefight that turned the warehouse into chaos. Elara fought her way toward Livia, taking down 2 attackers with shots that her younger self would have been proud of. She reached her sister, cut the bonds, pulled her into a crushing hug. "I've got you. I've got you. Sis, I don't understand what's happening. Who are these people? I'll explain everything, but right now we need to run." Except Ronan was between them and the exit, his gun trained on Cassian, blood streaming from a wound in his shoulder, but his aim still steady. "You took everything from me. My position, my respect, my face. Now I take everything from you." The shot rang out. Cassian went down hard, blood blooming across his chest. Elara screamed, her gun coming up, 3 shots that took Ronan in the chest, throat, and head before he could fire again. The warehouse fell silent except for the groans of wounded men and the sound of sirens approaching. Elara dropped to her knees beside Cassian, her hands pressing against his chest wound, trying to stop the bleeding that was too fast, too much. "Stay with me," she begged. "Don't you dare die on me again." "Elara," his voice was weak, blood bubbling at his lips. "I'm sorry for everything. For dying, for coming back, for dragging you into this war. Shut up. Just shut up and breathe." His hand found hers, squeezed weakly. "I love you. Never stopped. Not for a single day in 5 years. I know, you idiot. I love you too. Now stay alive so we can fight about it later." The ambulance arrived in a blur of lights and urgent voices. Paramedics swarmed Cassian, working with efficient desperation. Elara held Livia as they watched the man she'd loved and mourned and couldn't escape be loaded into the vehicle, his chances uncertain, his fate unknown. Dawn broke over Port Lucian's waterfront, painting the scene in shades of gold and blood. Police swarmed the warehouse, taking statements, photographing bodies, trying to piece together what had happened. Elara sat on the back of an ambulance, her arm bandaged from a graze she barely remembered receiving, watching the organized chaos. Livia leaned against her, both of them too shocked to process everything that had happened. "You were married to a crime boss," Livia finally said. "That's why we ran from Lagos. That's why you always looked over your shoulder. That's why you taught me to fight and shoot and never trust strangers." "Yes. And he's alive. Your husband who died in that fire is alive." "Yes." "Is he going to survive this?" "I don't know." Elara's voice cracked. "God, Liv, I don't know." Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. For a moment, Elara considered ignoring it. She'd had enough of anonymous messages, enough of threats and violence and impossible choices, but something made her look. A video message, the file size large enough to be concerning. She pressed play. The screen showed her café, but it was different now, covered in accelerant, gasoline pooling on the floor she'd mopped 1,000 times. A gloved hand held a match, the flame dancing in the darkness. A distorted voice, neither male nor female, speaking perfect English with no discernible accent. "Did you really think Ronan was working alone? Did you think Cassian's empire only had one enemy? You've been focused on the wrong war, Elara Lysander, looking at the wrong shadows. Your husband knows who I am. Ask him about Singapore, about the deal he made, about the price he agreed to pay. Ask him why he really came back. And when you realize you can't trust anyone, not even the man you love, then we'll talk about what comes next. Welcome home, Mrs. Lysander. The real game is just beginning." The match fell. The cafe exploded in flames so bright the video screen went white before cutting to black. Elara stared at her phone, at the message that made no sense, at the threat from an enemy she couldn't identify. Her cafe, her sanctuary, her life, gone in a burst of fire and malice. "What is it?" Livia asked. "Sis, what's wrong?" But Elara couldn't answer. Because somewhere in a hospital across the city, Cassian was fighting for his life. And somewhere in Port Lucian's shadows, an enemy she didn't know was orchestrating a war she didn't understand. And she was caught in the middle, alone, except for her terrified sister, with nothing left of her old life but ash and blood, and the terrible certainty that this was far from over. Her phone buzzed again. The hospital. Cassian was out of surgery, stable but critical. She had 20 minutes to get there before visiting hours ended. Elara looked at Livia, at the warehouse still swarming with police, at the smoke rising from her café blocks away. She thought about the files she'd destroyed, the secrets Cassian had kept, the price of loving a dangerous man. Then she made her choice. "Come on," she told Livia, pulling her to her feet. "We're going to the hospital." "Why?" "Because I need answers, and because whether I like it or not, Cassian is the only person who knows what we're really up against." Elara's jaw set with determination. "This isn't over. Someone out there thinks they can destroy everything I love, can burn down my life and get away with it. They're wrong." "What are you going to do?" "Whatever it takes." Elara's voice carried the weight of 5 years of running, 5 years of pretending to be someone she wasn't, 5 years of trying to escape a past that refused to stay buried. "I'm Elara Lysander, and it's time I remembered what that means." As they drove toward the hospital through Port Lucian's awakening streets, past the mixture of Korean signs and Nigerian restaurants that made this city unique, past the life she'd built and the peace she'd lost, Elara understood one thing with crushing certainty. The shadow Cassian left behind wasn't just his legacy or his enemies or his blood-soaked empire. It was her, and shadows once awakened were very hard to kill. If you're hooked on this story and desperate to find out what happens next, whether Cassian survives, who burned down Elara's café, and what secret from Singapore is about to tear their world apart, then you need to hit that subscribe button right now. Smash that like button if you're ready for part 2 and drop a comment telling me what you think Cassian is hiding. Is he protecting Elara, or is he the real danger? The truth waiting in the next episode will change everything you think you know about their story. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and get ready for revelations that will blow your mind. Part 2 is coming soon, and trust me when I say the real war hasn't even started.